Unit 20 Panchayati Raj. Introduction of Panchayati Raj was Introduction of Panchayati Raj was hailed as one of the most important political innovations in independent India. It was also considered as a revolutionary step. Panchayati Raj is a system of local self-government wherein the people take upon themselves the responsibility for development. It is also a system of institutional arrangement for achieving rural development through people's initiative and participation. Administration of development programs aimed at social, economic, and cultural development are entrusted to these self-governing institutions. Panchayati Raj involves a three-tier structure of democratic institutions at district, block, and village levels, namely Zila Parishad, Samiti, and Gram Panchayat, respectively. These institutions are considered as training ground of democracy and political education. Rural development programs are implemented at this level so that fruits of development can accrue to the community directly. These institutions were established in 1959 based on the philosophy of decentralization and Gram Swaraj. In this unit, we will discuss background, structure, power and functions of the Panchayati Raj institutions. In addition, we will explain role of bureaucracy, financial resources and 73rd constitutional amendment. Background of Panchayati Raj. Some form of rural institutions has been in existence in the country since the ancient period. Village formed the center of rural self-government in the early ages. They flourished during the ancient, medieval and Mughal period as well. During the nationalist movement, establishment of self-governing institutions at the grassroots level formed a part of the nationalist ideology. Gandhi, who led non-violent struggle for independence, observed, "My idea of village Swaraj is that it is a complete republic independent of its neighbors for its own for its own vital wants and yet interdependent for many others in which dependence is a dependence others in which dependence is unnecessity." Gandhi's ideas had pervading effect which was reflected in the Constituent Assembly debates. The draft of the constitution did not make any reference to village as unit of self-government. But there were many in Constituent Assembly who felt that villages should play an important role in economic and social development. After considerable debate and discussions, Article 40 was incorporated in the chapter on the directive principles of the state policy. This article calls upon the state to take steps to organize village panchayats and endow them with such powers and authority as may be necessary to enable them to function as unit of self-government. The adoption of planning as a strategy for development required securing cooperation of the people in rural areas to implement development programs. Community development program was initiated in the country in October 1952. Development blocks were established with limited staff and funds. The aim was coordinated development of the area with the help of an extension organization consisting of technical specialists working under the leadership of block development officer. At the grassroots level, there were multi-purpose workers. The finances were made available on the basis of matching contribution from the community. The intention was to use limited government funds to stimulate action for self-help. Advisory committees were constituted for every block for advice on the allocation of funds for development programs. To review the working of the community development program, the Committee on Planned Projects constituted a team to study the program and to report on the content and priorities of the program to ensure greater efficiency in their execution. The Panchayati Raj in India is broadly based upon the recommendations of a committee popularly known as Balwant Rai Mehta Committee, named after its chairman. The committee, which went into details, felt that the community development program could not make appreciable progress as the bodies neither had durable strength nor necessary leadership. They felt that these institutions should have representative character if they have to make any progress. The committee believed that so long as we do not discover or create representative and democratic institutions and endow them with adequate power and finance, it is difficult to evoke local interest and excite local initiative in the field of development. With this basic premise, the team made a large number of recommendations, which formed the basis for the establishment of three-tier structure of Panchayati Raj in the country. The team felt that the district was too large and the village was too small to be a unit of planning and development. For development work, a new local body with a territorial jurisdiction larger than the village and smaller than district should be created. It opted in favor of a block which came into existence in 1952 in preference to district. The experience of community development blocks influenced the team to favor the block. The block offered an area large enough for function which the village panchayat could not perform and yet small enough to attract the interest and service of the residents. It recommended the establishment of statutory bodies called Panchayat Samitis for each block. Below the Samiti, a village Panchayat at the village level, and above the Samiti, a Jila Parishad for each district was recommended. The team felt that village Panchayat should be constituted with directly elected representatives, whereas Samitis and Jila Parishad should be constituted with the indirectly elected members. It is accepted in principle that the executive and deliberative functions should be separated. In its view, Samiti should be responsible for developmental functions and Jila Parishad for coordination and supervisory functions. It recommended a three-tier structure. It made several recommendations about the constitution, internal organization, functions, finances, staffing pattern, as well as the arrangements for control over these institutions. Most of the state governments had accepted the recommendations of Balwant Mehta Committee and Panchayati Raj institutions were established. Andhra Pradesh and Rajasthan were the first to establish them in the country. The structure of Panchayati Raj that emerged in the states was substantially in tune with recommendations of Balwant Rai team, though there are distinguished differences from state. The government of Maharashtra, however, appointed a separate committee with VP Naik as chairman. Based on the recommendations of the Naik committee, a three-tier structure of Panchayati Raj was established in Maharashtra and Gujarat. In these two states, district instead of block was considered a suitable unit for development. Therefore, districts were established as units of planning and development, and samitis were to function as the extended arms of Zilla Parishad to implement development programs. However, village continued to be the basic unit of Panchayati Raj. In the country, thus two distinct patterns of Panchayati Raj have emerged. The first was the Andhra Rajasthan pattern, wherein block was the unit of planning and development. The development functions were entrusted to it. In second Maharashtra pattern, in the district, there was the unit of planning and development. Between these two patterns, there was variation in the structure of Panchayati Raj institutions in different states regarding their constitution, power, functions, nature and size of different tiers. Both the central and state governments have appointed several committees and commissions for reviewing the recommending reforms to strengthen Panchayati Raj. The Committee of Panchayati Raj, appointed by the central government under the chairmanship of Sri Ashok Mehta in 1978, is very important as it reviewed the system of Panchayati Raj in different states. This committee, after carefully examining the factors responsible for the weakening of Panchayati Raj institutions, recommended the constitution of Mandal Panchayats in between the village and districts. This, in its view, should be made the hub of development activities. The committee felt that a Mandal Panchayat with a population of 15,000 to 20,000 would facilitate forging necessary links. It made several recommendations in terms of constitution, committee system, functions, finance, etc. It recognized the unity of the direct participation of political parties in the Panchayati Raj. Its recommendations include the measures for human resource development, training of officials and non-officials, role of voluntary agencies, strengthening rural-urban relations, etc. The states like Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka and West Bengal made some efforts to implement the reforms suggested by the Ashok Mehta Committee. Thus, Balwant Rai Mehta Committee introduced the three-tier Panchayat system and Ashok Mehta Committee made an attempt to revitalize the system. The Janata Party, which was in power for a short period, did not find time to implement Ashok Mehta Committee report. Indira government did not take much interest. Rajiv government, however, intended to revitalize the Panchayat system and therefore introduced the 64th Constitution Amendment Bill in the Parliament in 1989. The bill intended to accord constitutional sanction to the units of local self-government. The Lok Sabha approved the bill, but it failed to get the approval of the Rajya Sabha. Narasimha Rao government took up the matter with the same motive and introduced the 72nd Constitution Amendment Bill in the Parliament, and it became the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Bill Act, 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act in 1992. By this Amendment Act, a new chapter known as Part 9 has been added to the Constitution. The main provisions are three-tier system of Panchayati Raj at village, intermediate and district level shall be introduced. Gram Sabha consisting of all voters in Panchayat area shall be constituted. Seats at all levels in the Panchayats shall be filled by direct elections. MPs, MLAs and MLCs will be members of the Panchayats at the intermediate or district level. Seats have been reserved for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes as well as women, etc. In the light of this amendment, Panchayat Acts in all states and union territories have been changed. The provisions of the 73rd Constitutional Amendment have been discussed in detail. '73rd Constitutional Amendment. The constitutional status of self-government has been accorded to the Panchayats under the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act 1992. With the enactment and enforcement of the Act from 24th April 1993, the states were asked to amend this respective legislation pertaining to Panchayats to bring them in conformity with the Act by 24th April 1994. The main features of the Act are discussed below. The Constitution of India provides for uniform system of three-tier Panchayats at the village, intermediate and district levels. But the Panchayats at the intermediate level may not be constituted in a state having a population not exceeding 20 lakh. All the seats in Panchayats are filled by person chosen by direct elections from territorial constituencies in the Panchayat area. The legislature of a state may by law provide for the representation of the MPs, MLAs and MLCs in the Panchayats at the intermediate and district levels. The state may also provides for the representation of the chairpersons of the village panchayats at the intermediate level and district level. This will create an organic link among the three-tier panchayats. One of the major reasons which hampered the development of Panchayati Raj institution has been the absence of regular and periodic elections within a time frame. Hence, these institutions had unstable tenures. That is why the Act has provided for a uniform term of 5 years and the elections are mandatory before the expiry of the term. In the event of dissolution, it has been made obligatory for the state to conduct the election within 6 months for the constitution of new body. This will provide continuity and strength to these institutions, and they will be able to establish themselves as an effective and strong people's institutions. In order to ensure a genuine and meaningful participation of weaker sections of the society, the Act provides reservation for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in the membership to these bodies at all the three levels in proportion to their population. Mere participation at the membership level may not prove to be meaningful. Therefore, the Act provides for reservation in the offices of the chairpersons also for these categories in proportion to their population in the states. It is a unique provision and would go a long way in according a proper voice to these weaker sections in the decision making at all levels. Women constitute half of our population. In order to give them an opportunity of the participation in the local offices, not less than one third of the posts of chairpersons have been reserved in their favor. These provisions would make women and weaker sections equal partners in the rural development. The amendment has assigned an important role in the Gram Sabha. All the voters in a village panchayat area are its members. It will exercise such power and perform such functions at the village level as the legislature of a state may be law provide. The Gram Sabhas existed in all states even before the 73rd Amendment, but they exist on paper and their role is insignificant. But the institution of Gram Sabha should be revitalized to involve the people, to evolve the program from the base. Panchayati Raj institutions can grow and develop if they are provided with a strong financial base. It is for this purpose the Act provides for a system of financial transfers on a mandatory basis. A State Finance Commission has been set up in every state once in every 5 years to review the financial position of the panchayats and make appropriate recommendations for strengthening the resource base of these institutions. Free and fair elections in a democracy constitute the most important step in securing trust and respect from the people for any institution. Therefore, the Act provides for a state election commission for superintendence, direction and conduct of all panchayat elections. The 11th schedule containing 29 items, example goes agriculture, minor irrigation, fisheries, rural housing, etc., is to serve as a guide to the state governments for delegating functions to the PRIs. Panchayat have to prepare plans for economic development and social justice. Plans prepared by the panchayats are to be consolidated by the district planning committee. Another important provision for the Amendment Act is the constitution of the district planning committee to consolidate the plans prepared by the panchayats and municipalities in the districts. The net effect of the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act 1992 is a constitutional status of Panchayati Raj institutions, b. widening of the social base of these institutions, c. making panchayats the foundation stone of planning, and d. provision of constitutionally allocated fund for development work to be undertaken by the Panchayati Raj institutions. Panchayats in Scheduled Areas. Extension to the Scheduled Areas Act 1996. The provisions of the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act did not apply to the scheduled areas located in Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Himachal Pradesh, Odisha and Bihar wide clause number 1 of Article 244 of the Constitution. Parliament extended the 73rd Amendment Act to these areas in December 24th, 1996 by legislating the Panchayats extension to the Scheduled Areas Act. Legislating the Panchayats Act 1996. The basic premise of the provisions of the Panchayats was to facilitate participative democracy in tribal areas by empowering Gram Sabha, restore the power to community to manage natural resources like land, water, forest and minerals, and evolve an effective delivery system for development within its territorial jurisdiction. However, the disturbing trend is widespread apathy on the part of the state governments, as the number of states diluted the intent of the act by assigning more power to the Gram Panchayat over the Gram Sabha. The state governments do not appear to have clear idea about the term local self-government, especially to what extent the panchayats in the scheduled areas are to be given administrative and financial autonomy need to be clarified to the states. In such circumstances, the government, NGOs, and people's organizations have to play a significant role to make these provisions a reality. Panchayati Raj institutions. After the 73rd constitutional amendment, we have in every state a three-tier Panchayati Raj structure at the village, block, and district level. Gram Sabha. An important feature of the structure of panchayats at the village level is Gram Sabha. It is the supreme village assembly and soul of PRIs, having a legal status under the law. It consists of all the adult persons registered as voters in the electoral roll of a village comprised within the area of Gram Panchayat. It has been made obligatory for the Gram Sabha to hold two general meetings in each year. A Gram Sabha may exercise such power and perform such functions as the legislature of a state may by law provides. In most of the states, Gram Sabhas are constituted as an instrument of popular participation at the cutting edge level. They are vested with the power to consider the accounts and administration of the panchayat and approve proposals for taxation and plans for development and identifying beneficiaries under various schemes. Throughout the country, village panchayat is the basic unit in the structure of Panchayati Raj. As village panchayats have been in existence in the country since ancient times, almost all the states have recognized their importance. It is also felt that as panchayats are nearer to the community, they would ensure more direct participation of the people in the implementation of development programs. All the seats in Gram Panchayat are filled by persons chosen by direct elections from the territorial constituencies in the panchayat area. Seats have been reserved for scheduled castes and tribes as well as women. Panchayat Samiti. Samiti is the next important body in the structure of Panchayati Raj. In almost all the states, Samitis have been given important role. The voters in the area directly elect their representatives in a Samiti. The state may provide representation of the chairperson of the village panchayats, MPs, MLAs, and MLCs. Thus, the structure of the Panchayat Samiti varies from state to state. The seats are reserved for scheduled caste, tribes, and women. Jila Parishad. Jila Parishad as the third tier has been established at the district level in all the states. The structural pattern of the Jila Parishad is same as the Panchayat Samiti. The voters directly elect their representatives from their constituencies. These seats also have been reserved for scheduled castes, tribes, and women. The state legislature may provide by law representation of the chairpersons of the Panchayat Samitis, MPs, MLAs, and MLCs. Power and functions. Gram Panchayat. At the village level, the panchayats are responsible for formulation and implementation of development programs. These bodies have been assigned variety of functions within the limits of the funds at their disposal to make arrangements for carrying out the requirement of Sabha area. General functions of the GP include maintenance of essential statistics of the village under its jurisdiction, preparation of annual plans for the development of the GP area, preparation of annual budget, power of mobilizing relief works during disaster, removal of encroachments on public places, and organizing voluntary labor and contribution for community works. Other important functions are related to the development and improvement of agriculture, animal husbandry, fisheries, rural housing, drinking water, rural electrification, non-conventional energy sources, education including primary and secondary schools, adult education including primary and secondary schools, libraries, cultural activities, markets and fairs, rural sanitation, public health and family welfare, women and children development, welfare of the weaker section, public distribution system, maintenance of community assets, construction and maintenance of dharamshala, cattle sheds, slaughterhouses, public parks, etc. Gram panchayats have been entrusted with both obligatory and discretionary functions. These are both civic and developmental. The main emphasis is on development activities such as agriculture, primary education, health and sanitation, and local amenities. It is generally felt that they are charged with too many functions without adequate resources. Panchayat Samiti. The Panchayat Samiti performs all developmental functions necessary for formulation and execution of the development programs financed by the government agents. The power and main functions of Panchayat Samitis are as follows. Number 1. Preparation of the annual plans in respect of the schemes entrusted to it and their submission to the Chief Executive Officer within a period of 2 months of its receipt for the consideration of the District Planning Committee. Second, consideration and consolidation of the annual plans for all GPs in the block and their submission to the Jila Parishad (ZP). Preparation of annual budget of the blocks and its submission within time limits of ZP. Providing relief in natural calamity or disaster. Performing such functions and executing such works as entrusted to it by the government or the ZP. In addition, PS have been entrusted with a large number of power and functions such as land improvement and watershed development, minor irrigation, animal husbandry, fisheries, dairying and poultry, village and cottage industries, drinking water, rural electrification, khadi, etc. Jila Parishad. The ZP is mainly an advisory, supervisory and coordinating agency of the panchayat system. It gives advice to Panchayat Samiti or the requirement of the government or at the request of a Panchayat Samitis or of its own motion. Coordinates and consolidates development plans in respect of PS. Secures the execution of plans, project schemes, etc. Common to two or more Panchayat Samitis in the district, advises the government on all matters concerning development activities and maintenance of services in the district. Advises the government on allocation of work among Gram Panchayats and Panchayat Samitis and coordinate their work. Advises the government on matters referred by the government concerning the implementation of any statutory or executive order and examines and approves the budget of Panchayat Samitis in the manner laid down in section 102 of the Haryana Panchayati Raj Act 1994. The Jila Parishad, under written order of the government, exercises such supervision and control over the performance of all or any of the administrative functions of the Gram Panchayat and Panchayat Samiti within the district or any part thereof. There are two views regarding the constitutional position in respect of devolution of functions to the panchayats. It is generally held that the panchayats can be entrusted with the developmental responsibilities only, and such responsibilities are limited by the 11th schedule. There is another view that relies on the substantive part of Article 243G that suggests the endowment of such power and authority as may be necessary to enable them to function as an institution of local government. This view comes to the conclusion that the 11th schedule is not the ceiling and it is for the state legislature to decide what power and responsibilities the panchayats should have in order to enable them to function as institutions of self-government. Committee system. Borrowing the British practice, Indian local self-government institutions have adopted the committee system to transact the business of these institutions. This is true of both urban local bodies as well as Panchayat Raj institutions. As the general body consists of too many members and the councils meet too infrequently, appointments of committee becomes inevitable. The committees ensure detailed discussion before decisions. It also enables the effective participation of the members in the discussions and decision making. There are wide variations both in the member and size of the committees and also in their role. In Maharashtra, there are both functional as well as standing committees which act as coordinating committees, but in many states there are functional committees. In some states, the political executives of these bodies are members in the sum, and some they are not. In some states, the political executives of these bodies are members and in some they are not. An interesting feature of the Panchayati Raj institutions is that even at the village level, some of the states have made provisions for constituting committees like Village Development Committee in Haryana. The committees at Samitis and Parishad level are organized more systematically. Their contribution is also substantial, but there are substantial variations in the member and functions of these committees between states. In some states, all the committees are functional, and in Maharashtra and West Bengal, there are both functional and standing committee. Most states consider that it is an advantage to have an executive committee, which may emerge as a cabinet and can undertake supervisory and coordinating functions. The chairman plays a very important role in the committees. In some states, chairman is elected from among the members of the committee. In others, the political executive becomes the chairman of the committees. Administrative structure. The need for efficient and competent personnel in Panchayati Raj institutions has been recognized from the beginning. Local self-government agencies have to implement several development programs which require technical personnel. They provide continuity in the policies and programs of these bodies because the political executives change periodically. Competent personnel are also essential to ensure non-partisan and objective decision making. There are two categories of personnel in Panchayati Raj institutions. One is the state cadre officials placed under the control of Panchayati Raj institutions, viz. Block development officers and other technical officers from state departments. Their recruitment, transfers, promotions and discipline rest with the state government. The second is the constitution of separate Panchayati Raj cadre. It is found in Maharashtra, Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh and Rajasthan. Broadly in Panchayati Raj, two types of officers can be identified, viz. Generalist and technical officers. Chief executive officers, BDOs, village level workers and village level workers come under generalist category. District technical officers like district level officers and extension officers constitute the technical category. Another classification is state cadre official and local cadre officials. Chief executive officers, BDO, technical officers, extension officers, etc. belong to the state cadre. They belong to one of the state level departments. The state government regulates their conditions of service. Village level workers, school teachers and ministerial staff broadly constitute local cadre officials. They are appointed at the district level and are considered as employees of the Panchayati Raj institutions. There is a large measure of uniformity in the staffing pattern in the Panchayati Raj institutions in the country. At the village level, there is a secretary or an executive officer looking after administrative work of the panchayat. The village level worker is appointed for a group of villages. He is mainly a multi-purpose functionary concerned with development programs in the villages under his jurisdiction. At the block level, BDO acts as a chief executive officer and coordinates the work of officers under him. Extension officers for each development activity are posted at the block level. They work under the administrative control of the BDOs as well as the technical control of district level officers. This dual control has led to several problems at the block level. In Jila Parishads, Chief Executive Officer or District Development Officer is the head of the Jila Parishad. District Technical Officers assists him in the development work. There are number of personal problems as different categories of functionaries work in Panchayat Raj. They are selected by different agencies and their conditions of service and channels of promotion are different. Often their compatibility to the Panchayati Raj system is questioned. A number of state level officers are on deputation. They function as birds of passage without any commitment with the Panchayati Raj institutions. Frequent transfer of officers, increasing volume of paperwork, inadequate opportunities for growth and advancement are some of the problems which are affecting the functioning of the Panchayati Raj institutions. The Panchayati Raj staff exhibit a lack of unified pattern, unsatisfactory conditions of service, and lack of effective training programs. Finance. The financial resources of Panchayati Raj institutions can broadly be divided into four categories, viz. Taxes, grants, and public contributions. Income through productive enterprises and loans. Taxes levied by Panchayat are both compulsory and discretionary. The Panchayats in some states collect vehicle tax, profession tax, etc. Unfortunately, there has been a general reluctance on the part of Panchayats to levy and collect the taxes. Government grant is another source of income to Panchayat. In most of the cases, Panchayats survive only on government grants. There is, however, no uniformity in the nature and quantum of grants. Panchayats derive income from productive enterprises like cinema halls, flour mills, etc. The Panchayat Samitis in many states also have power of taxation. They can levy house tax, irrigation tax, education tax, etc. But rarely this power of taxation is exercised. These Samitis also receive grants from government, and there are variations between state to state in the nature and quantum of grants. In some states where functions like education have been transferred to Samitis, they are given grants to undertake these functions. The Zilla Parishad undertake coordinating functions. Therefore, their finances mostly consist of grants received from the state government and the assigned revenues. The funds of the Parishad come mainly from the share of the land revenue and other taxes assigned to them by the government. A serious problem with Panchayati Raj institutions is that they have always been starved of finances. Inadequacy of finances is one of the basic reasons for their inability to undertake the development functions. Though they are considered as principal agencies of rural development, they are not given adequate resources. In almost all the states, there has been heavy dependence of the Panchayati Raj institutions on the state grants. The quantum of grants is mostly determined by the state government based on its own resource base rather than on the functions and needs of Panchayati Raj institutions. The taxes, duties, tolls, and fees to be levied by the panchayats are assigned to them, and the grants in aid to be given to them have been left to the discretion of the state governments. But after 73rd Constitution Amendment, we have a finance commission in every state, and it is constituted once in every 5 years. The Finance Commission is to make recommendations regarding the principles to govern the distribution of the taxes, duties, tolls, and fees between the state and the panchayats, and also its distribution between the panchayats at all levels. The Commission also suggests the principles for determination of the taxes, duties, tolls, and fees to be assigned to them, and the grants in aid to be given from the consolidated fund of the state. It also has the mandate to suggest ways and means of improving the financial position of the Panchayati Raj institutions. The Union Finance Commission now looks into the need for non-planned funds of the panchayats. Federal transfer are also available for municipalities from the Union Finance Commission. State and Panchayati Raj institutions. Panchayati Raj institutions are the creatures of the state government, and as such the nature of relationship between them is determined by the state acts. The state legislatures pass the legislation relating to these institutions and are vigilant about their working. The legislature indirectly exercises administrative control over these bodies. Departments of Panchayati Raj and local government which deal with these institutions prescribe guidelines for their functioning. Another important method of control is through the staff. As you have seen earlier, executive and technical staff in Panchayati Raj institutions come from different state departments, and as such they are more loyal to the state government than to the institutions where they work. This is also being used as an instrument of control. Budgets of different tiers of Panchayati Raj units need to be approved by higher authorities, though in actual practice there are variations from state to state. The government grant in another method of control. While giving grants, the government specifies purpose and method of utilizing the grant. In addition, periodic audit is also an instrument of control. The government has the power to suspend and annul the resolutions of these bodies. The government also exercises the power of removing members of these bodies and officers at different levels, and also inspects the institutions. The state government exercises control through the power of suppression and dissolution. In recent years, there are criticisms that the state government is using the power of suppression and the dissolution more on political considerations. Balwant Rai Mehta Committee felt that the Panchayati Raj bodies must not be cramped by too much control by the government or government agencies. It must have the power to make its own decisions. They can learn by making mistakes, but it must also receive guidance, which will help them to avoid making mistakes. Unfortunately, there appears to be too much of control than guidance over these institutions. This aspect has affected the efficiency as well as autonomy of these institutions. It is to be noted that according to Article 243G of the Constitution, the panchayats are institutions of local self-government and the state legislatures are required to endow them with such power and authority as may be necessary to enable them to function as such. It follows that each tier of the panchayats should have autonomy in respect of functions attached to it. Literally, autonomy means exercise of authority without outside interference. Autonomy is the lifeline for any local government to succeed in its responsibility, but the panchayats cannot enjoy full autonomy as they are placed within a state. They are sovereign units. They enjoy functional autonomy within a limited sphere. Under the 73rd Constitution, Amendment Act 1992, the state legislature will determine the range of power to be transferred to the panchayats. Moreover, to make the panchayats financially viable, provisions have been made to increase their revenue base by creation of State Finance Commission and also by involving the Union Finance Commission. The power of the state government to suspend the panchayats have been restricted to 6 months. This provision will give the panchayats to act independently of the state government. As a result, the state interference has been greatly reduced. Panchayati Raj institutions in India have completed 4 decades of their existence. Its introduction was considered as a social revolution and an answer to several problems affecting the rural society. A question that is often raised is whether Panchayati Raj is successful or not. There are 2 viewpoints on this. Protagonists of Panchayati Raj argue that it is successful and has achieved its objectives. On the other hand, critics argue that it has failed to realize its objectives. Panchayati Raj has had its ups and downs. It has passed through the phases of ascendance, stagnation and decline. Protagonists argue that Panchayati Raj has become a democratic seed drilling by making the people conscious and their rights. It has bridged the gap between the bureaucracy and the people. It has also generated a new leadership which is young, forward-looking and modernistic. It has even cultivated a development psyche among the people. It has played a positive role in initiating and implementing the development programs. At many places, political base has been used to provide the needed impetus to implement development programs. It has opened a new type of leadership in the rural areas. These leaders, trained in the art of democratic institutions, have climbed the ladder and have become political executives at the higher echelons of democratic institutions. A question often raised is whether there has been sufficient transfer of power to the local bodies or not. The acts creating Panchayati Raj institutions have no doubt specified the power and functions of each of the tiers of Panchayati Raj. They were expected to formulate plans based on local needs and implement them. But unfortunately, local bodies began formulating plans in a mechanical and routine way without taking into consideration the local requirements. One reason attributed to this is the narrow resource base of the Panchayati Raj institutions, which does not enable them to take all the local needs and plan for their fulfillment. Ashok Mehta committee went to the extent of commenting that the attitude of political elite at the higher level was lukewarm towards strengthening Panchayati Raj. This led to half-hearted approach on the part of the government to transfer power and responsibilities to the Panchayati Raj bodies. But a major criticism is that the leadership is drawn from a narrow social base. It is alleged that the majority of them come from dominant land-owning castes and classes. Ashok Mehta committee has noted in this context that the Panchayati Raj institutions are dominated by economically and socially privileged sections of the society, and as such has facilitated the emergence of oligarchic forces yielding no benefit to weaker section. Coordination in sine qua non for efficient administration of development programs. Unfortunately, it appears to be one of the serious problems facing Panchayati Raj. The dual control over extension officers, absence of total integration of development departments and Panchayati Raj institutions are some of the reasons attributed for the failure of conditions. Emphasis is on cumbersome administrative procedures which affect the initiative and hamper the process of implementation. There appears to be more emphasis on rule mandatedness than on roles to be performed. This has resulted in delays in execution of development programs. Red tape is dampening the initiative of people's representatives as well. Identification of officials with the goals of the organization is a precondition for the successful working of any program. In Panchayati Raj institutions, as we have noted, there are several officials coming from different departments. Their divided loyalties between Panchayati Raj and parent departments also come in the way of total identification of the officials with the goals and objectives of the Panchayati Raj institutions. Panchayati Raj institutions, particularly at the grassroots level, concentrate on civic amenities than extension work. There appears to be enthusiasm in the construction of school buildings than running the school effectively. Though civic amenities and infrastructure are important, extension cannot be totally ignored. Another problem area is that the welfare or weaker sections, which either for want of commitment or for wants of resources does not seem to have received proper attention by the Panchayati Raj institutions. Panchayati Raj, notwithstanding these limitations, has provided the needed impetus in democratizing rural local institutions. It has generated interest and enthusiasm among the rural people. This enthusiasm, unfortunately, is not matched by support from the higher levels and is not supplemented by matching resources. It is this which is creating problems for Panchayati Raj institutions. A high Gray has, as Hugh Gray has noted, it is not a question of either or Panchayati Raj, it is a question of either democracy or no democracy. If we are committed to canons of democracy, there is need for self-governing institutions at local level, and Panchayati Raj institutions are democratic institutions in India. Success of Panchayati Raj would strengthen the democracy in the country and their failure will weaken it. Democracy cannot stop at national and state level. If democracy is to survive, establishment of democratic institutions and their proper functioning at the grassroots level is an imperative necessity. Only through the strengthening of the institution at the grassroots level, people will participate in their governance. In a plural society, opportunities to participate in policy formulation and implementation of different groups are possible only through institutions of local self-government. After the implementation of the 73rd Constitutional Amendment, there has been a persistent demand for a separate ministry for panchayats. The newly formed United Progressive Alliance government at the center 2004 has taken a historical step by creating a separate ministry for panchayats. Summary: Panchayati Raj has been heralded as a social revolution in the country. It was established in the country on the basis of Balwant Rai Mehta Committee's recommendations. In this unit, the recommendations of Balwant Rai Mehta Committee, Ashok Mehta Committee, and 73rd Constitutional Amendment have been emphasized. These institutions were in a moribund state for years together. By the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act 1992, panchayats have been given a constitutional status. In addition, the role of Panchayati Raj institutions, administrative structure, finance, resources, and relationship between the state and PRIs have been described. What is heartening is that there has been a realization on the need and significance of Panchayati Raj to strengthen democracy.